What? Good morning, Life Church. Would you stand and worship with us this morning?
None
You can be seated.
Good morning, good morning. Hope everybody's doing all right this morning. I'd like to welcome you here to Live Church with us. If you don't know who I am JP. I'm on staff here. And if you're new with us, there should be a green card in the pew in front of you. If you could take a second to fill that out and drop it in the offering plate, it's our way of connecting with you. Also, if you'll stop by the back at the end of the service, we'll have a green cup for you. Here at Life Church, we do what we call doing life together. So that consists of fellowship. So if everybody would stand, hug somebody you know, shake somebody's hand you don't.
That sound meant it was time for all of our kids to make their way back to Kids Room. I'm going to invite everybody else to make your way to your seat. I want to draw your attention to a couple of announcements. So if you make your way to your seat, I want to tell you about a few things going on here at Life Church. All right, well, it seems like everybody is full of energy today. And that's because we all got an extra hour of sleep. Who enjoyed your extra hour of sleep? Yes, it was a good extra hour. Along with this time of year comes up Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is coming in a couple weeks, and we know people will travel, people will do different things. But here at Life Church, as we do life together, one of the things is sharing a Thanksgiving meal together. So next Sunday, you can mark your calendars. Right after the service, don't make lunch plans. We're going to have a Thanksgiving lunch together as a church next Sunday right after church. It's a complete donation-based meal, so if you'd like to give something toward that, we encourage it, but we want everybody to come after the service. It's going to be in our Life Center, so we'll be headed right over here. You don't have to travel far. You don't have to stand in lines. You don't have to figure out what you're ordering or where you're going or cooking. You just show up next week. You come over and have lunch with us. So I want to encourage you to come. Plan on staying around next Sunday after church for our Thanksgiving lunch. Two other things I want to tell you about. Every Wednesday night we have something called Midweek. Now, during midweek, for our members, this week we're going to have a church business meeting. That's going to be from 5:30 to 6 o'clock in the chapel. So if you're one of our members in the chapel, 5:30 to 6 o'clock. Right after that, we'll go into our regular schedule. So 6 to 6:30, we'll have dinner on Wednesday night. 6:30 to 7:30 is our bridge worship service and our kids program. If you're confused by that, just show up on Wednesday night and we'll point you in the right direction. You'll be good. One other thing we want to tell you about this Wednesday night, which we're really excited about, is Wednesday night after we finish our bridge service, after we finish our kids program, we are starting back our Life Church worship choir. And so if you've already been a part of our Life Church worship choir in the past, I want to invite you. Wednesday night we're going to be starting back with practice. If you've never and you just want to give it a shot, you say, I don't even know how to sing, but I can make a joyful noise. Come on out, come together with us. Wednesday night, 7:30 to 8:30, we're going to have practice. We're going to be getting ready. We're going to be singing a couple times coming up here through the end of the year. So I want to invite you to come out. It's a good time of just worshiping together. I believe that is all that I need to draw your attention to at this moment. But let's take a moment. Let's go to God in prayer. Ask His blessing on our time together. God, as we begin this service, as we talk about worship, we recognize that worship is not music. Worship is not a place. Worship is not a time. God, worship is the attitude of our heart. And so we ask that right now you would allow your Spirit to work in our heart. That we might hear from you. That we might be aware of your presence. God, that we would set our mind and our focus and our attention on you so that as you speak, you would change our lives. So God, we come together right now just asking you to do a work. Would you grow us in our fellowship with one another and grow us in our relationship with you? Would you help us to understand the love you have for us and the love that we can have for you? And that the byproduct of that love would be love for one another. And God, as we meet together, would you just give us a reminder to reach our neighbors and reach the nations with the truth of your Son, Jesus. So we praise you right now. We come to worship you. It's in Jesus' name we ask this. Amen.
Would you stand with us and continue to worship?
stood before creation, eternity in your hand. You spoke the earth into motion, my soul now to stand. You stood before my failure and carried the cross for my shame. My sin went upon your shoulders, my soul now to stand.
So what can I say?
What can I say? And what can I do? But offer this heart, oh God, completely to you. Walk upon salvation, your spirit alive in me. With heart to declare your promise, my soul now to stand. What can I say? What can I do?
unto his name. We would sing glory and honor and his wisdom and his power, not only here, but all peoples around the entire world. We come to the time in our service where we prepare to take up our offering. One of the things that most of you know that we do here is we like to talk about the different ways our offerings impact the world around us. And over the last month and still coming up over the next few weeks, you're going to continue to hear more and more about Operation Christmas Child. And this is outside of our regular offering. This is something we do once a year that we have as a church an opportunity just to get involved in making these little shoe boxes filled with toys and goodies for boys and girls all around the world. But here's what we do with these boxes. We take them and we send them out with missionaries to go all around the world. And so there's somebody who's going to take the box that you pack, and they're going to take it to a child, and they're going to give it to them. They get to open it up and celebrate and see what they received from somebody down in Savannah, Georgia, who loved them enough to pack a shoebox. And then they're going to hear about the love of Jesus. And they're going to hear about a God who cares about them and God who loved them enough to send Jesus so that they could be made right with him. And so our desire, as we prayed earlier, is we do want to reach our neighbors in the community of Savannah, but we also want to reach the nations, knowing that every single person is created in the image of God. And so we have so many different ways you can get involved with Operation Christmas Child. In the back, there's a Christmas tree with different little envelopes or different cards that you can pull off of it. If you want to pack your own box, you can pull off one of those cards and write your name on that and say, I'm going to pack my own box, and we'll be collecting them here. Or you might say, I want to just donate some supplies or fun store supplies, and we're going to get together as a church in a couple weeks on a Wednesday night, and we're going to pack a bunch of shoe boxes together. You might say, I want to donate toward the shipping cost of getting these overseas. And one last thing we're going to invite you to do is right at the beginning of December, about a month away, we're going to take a small group of people to Atlanta. And we're going to go stay in a church up there. We're going to take some air mattresses with us, and it's going to be an overnight trip. We're going to go to their processing center where all these boxes end up in Atlanta, and we're going to help pack those boxes and get them ready to actually go off in shipping containers. And so if you're interested in plugging in with that, we'll tell you all the details about how to sign up next week. The reality is the reason we do this, the reason we have church, the reason we take up an offering is ultimately because there is a God who loves you. And because of his great love for us, he called us to have a great love for other people. And so whether it's through Operation Christmas Child or the many different things that God gives us the opportunity to be involved in, we ask that he would burden our hearts for our neighbors and the nations. Would you pray with me? God, we lift up your name. It is worthy of glory and honor and praise from all people. And so, God, we ask you would use us to make your name great among the nations. That your love would resound in the nations. God, we trust that you say in your word, no matter how small an offering we are able to bring, that you look at the attitude of our heart and the intention of our heart, and you multiply those offerings for the sake of your kingdom. So we ask you would multiply this, whether it's through our regular tithes and offerings or Operation Christmas Child, God, that you would multiply these, that this wouldn't be about us and not our selfish gain, and that we wouldn't use this as an opportunity to make ourselves comfortable. And God, I ask that no one here would give out of compulsion or out of pressure. But God, we do love to worship you. So we ask that you just be glorified with our actions and our hearts. In the name of Jesus we ask this. Amen.
As John comes to deliver this message that you have laid on his heart, I pray that it be an encouragement and a blessing to all of us here. It is in your holy and precious name I ask. Amen.
Man, that's worship. And one of those moments where I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do now. Pray. Let's go. I had another, strange enough, a weird moment, very unrelated, that I didn't know what I was supposed to do about a couple months ago. I was driving home from work one night. It was late at night, and it was raining really hard. And I was driving south on Abercorn, and I was in the far left lane. And as I was driving down, there was nobody else on the road except me, and there was a car getting ready to turn onto Abercorn. And they did. They turned right on Abercorn, kind of as I was coming up. But instead of staying in the right lane or the middle lane, they just like right over into me. And like as I saw them coming, I slammed on my brakes and I tried to avoid them, but we collided. And I thought, oh, like I know what I'm supposed to do in this moment. Like we're supposed to pull over and get the police and stand out in the rain and have a miserable rest of the night. And so I went to do that. I went to pull over, and they kind of pulled into the left turn lane at the intersection that we were coming up to. And then something weird happened. They took off. They did. Like they just was like, argh! And I had no clue what I was supposed to do. And so my mind immediately just went to an action movie I'd ever seen and thought, chase them. Yes, I did. I was like, oh, no, you don't. Now, if you don't know, I drive a little Pontiac and G6 4-cylinder. So it's not the chasing kind of car, but I was trying really hard. I was trying to chase them, and so they were like going down back roads, like flying, and I was trying not to get. And so the only other thing I needed to do was to call 911 as I'm trying to chase them, and I'm thinking through like I got to catch them and bring them to justice. And so I'm chasing this person. I don't know, guy, lady. I assume it was a guy, just because I'm like, well, they didn't want to do this. Let's be honest. And so I'm chasing what I assume is this guy, and I get on the phone with 911, I get him on speaker, I just like toss my phone and I'm like yelling at the 911 lady, and I'm like, there's a car, and they hit me, and I'm chasing them. And the lady was just like as calm as, she was like, sir, I'm going to have to advise you that you stop chasing this person. And I was like, no, I got to get him, and then I'll get a picture on my cell phone. And then she says this, she says, sir, if you get to them, you might not want to know why they're running. And she was like, this is a really dangerous situation. My best advice to you is just pull over and stop. Yeah, I did. Told my wife not too long after it happened. Here's what happened to me. I called her up. And she was like, you did what? It's like, justice. And then it kind of hit me. I thought, what would have happened? Like, what was I doing chasing this person? Like, for some reason they were running. And I thought, all I was setting to do was to get home. See my girls. To be with my family. All the things that I value most in the world. And then this little thing happened, and I was off on a chase. And what I realized is, what if this person was actually crazy? Like, what if I got to them, and they got out of the car, and they were angry because I finally caught them, and they caused physical harm to me? And I realized what I was risking by chasing this person. I was risking everything that actually mattered in my life on this silly pursuit of justice. Now we're in this series called Against the Grain. We've been looking at these teachings of Jesus. What Jesus has to say is he's gathering together with this large crowd of people, and he starts to tell them, here's what it's going to look like to follow me. And he says so many things in this passage that are contrary to our culture, that are contrary to our nature. And Jesus' whole attention is, if you want to follow me, you must follow me. And as I look at what Jesus is saying, I wonder how often in our lives we look around and we realize we have everything that really matters in Jesus. And we spend our lives chasing things that only risk what Jesus is willing to do in our lives. Jesus will say things. You want to follow me, it's going to go against your natural inclinations. It's going to go against what you just want to do at times. It's going to be pursuing the very things of God. And when we pursue the things of God, we give away the things of the world. And when we try to pursue the things of the world, we risk the things that God is willing to offer. If you have a Bible, I'm going to invite you to open up to Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6, where Jesus is going to begin to explain why it matters what treasure we pursue. Why it matters what we pursue in life, and begin to examine what are we pursuing in life. If you don't have a Bible, you're welcome to follow along with me on the screens. I'm going to be reading out of Matthew chapter 6, the Christian Standard Bible. Matthew chapter 6, picking up in verse 16, Jesus says this: "Whenever you fast, don't be gloomy like the hypocrites, for they make their faces unattractive so that their fasting is obvious to people. Truly I tell you, they have their reward. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face so that your fasting isn't obvious, but to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you." Let's stop there. Why does it matter what treasure we pursue? Why does it matter what we pursue in our lives? Jesus begins here by talking about fasting. This discussion about fasting is immediately following his discussion on prayer. And if you're unfamiliar with fasting, fasting is taking time to abstain from something. Typically, food is most often associated with fasting. But it's abstaining from something in your life and using your desire, using your attention and your want of that thing to focus your attention on God. Often fasting is done when people are seeking direction in their life, or they have a request that they're bringing before God, and they just want to spend some intense time in prayer before God. So the desire in fasting should be to help us focus on God. And Jesus gives this example of somebody fasting. And he says this unusual thing. He says, it's possible for people to fast and their attention, their treasure, their goal to be to look good in front of other people. Now, he doesn't tell us how often to fast. He doesn't tell us exactly what it looks like when we're fasting. He's just saying, in these times that God has given us something like fasting that we can use to draw our attention and our heart and our focus on God, he said it's possible that we can use that to actually try to get the attention of people, to try to get the affirmation of people. And Jesus just very simply says this: if our motivation for the things that God has given us is people, then that is our reward, and we're missing out on what God is willing to do in our lives. As we start to try to answer this question, why does it matter what you pursue, we begin to see this selfish ambition robs you of meaningful results. In this example, the person is fasting to look good in front of other people. He says that they would disfigure their face to make sure it was obvious that people knew. Look how holy, look how spiritual I am. Recognize what I'm doing before God and feel good about me. And Jesus says they have a reward in this. People will look, people will recognize, people will see that you're doing something in a religious sense, and they will respect it. And that is your reward. You've already received your reward. And on the other side, there is the question of what is the reward of fasting actually supposed to be? The reward for fasting, or the result of fasting, is that God hears and that He responds and that we have our attention on Him and His attention on us. And as dearly loved children, He seeks to honor us as we seek to honor Him. And Jesus is saying, look, when we take the things of God and we turn them into selfish ambition, we give that up. That's a huge statement. When our attention is on people around us, we give up what God is willing to do in our lives. I got a little toy here today. This isn't mine, this is JP's. I asked him to bring it for me today. You know what this is? It's a fishing pole. What is this used for? Sure. Maybe. If I use this to point at things, I'll be like a big teacher in here. I'll be like, selfish ambition robs you of meaningful results. I'm using the fishing pole. Is that the intended purpose of the fishing pole? No. And it's doing this. It's doing what I'm trying to do with it. It is pointing. I could use it as a back scratcher. I made sure to tell JP to take the hook out of it. Otherwise, the sermon would be over at point 1. I could use it for fencing. I don't know if this is how you fence. I can use it for all those things. And if I use it for those things, will this catch fish? No. Because I'm not using it for what it's actually designed for. How do you catch fish with a fishing pole? You go fishing. You take it to a lake or a pond or some body of water, or fish tank. My extent fishing. You cast it out and you catch fish in the way it's designed to be used. Jesus uses this example of fasting. And he says, if you're not using it in what it's designed for, it's not going to accomplish the stated purpose of fasting. And this doesn't just stop with fasting. The reality is we can take anything that God gives us to bring about communion in our relationship with Him and use it for the wrong reasons, and we give up the results. Anything that we take of God and use for selfish motivation destroys its usefulness. Fasting is just one of them. Earlier we talked about worship. You know, we can come together and we can sing songs. And you know, we can actually all sing the same song and do it for different reasons. And our prayers. And the reason we attend church is not just those overly religious things. We can take our friendships and use them for the wrong purpose. We can take things like that we have here as a church. We can take our small groups and use it for the wrong purpose. We can take the spiritual gifts, the abilities that God gives us, and we can use them for the wrong purpose. And when we take the things of God, these gifts that God has given us, whatever it is in our lives, and we use it for the wrong purpose, Jesus simply says, don't be surprised when it only actually accomplishes what you're trying to do, as opposed to bringing about something in our relationship with God that we so actually desire. So we can talk about things that we should do. All of these things I would affirm we should be doing in our lives. It is good to take times and fast. It is good to worship. It is good to pray. It is good to be involved in church. It is good to have friendships. It's good to be involved in a small group. It is good to use our spiritual gifts. But as we do these things, the question is, where is our attention? Where is our focus? Is it on God and what God is willing to do? Because he says when we do that, when we use it the way God has designed us to use it, he is our reward. You get that? The opposite of this is true. If, when we use fasting in the wrong way, or spiritual things in the wrong way, we don't get the results, then when we use them in the right way, they actually accomplish what they're designed to accomplish. Bringing about unity with God. That we grow in our relationship with God, that we grow in our relationship with others, that we love God more effectively and we love others more effectively, that we reach our neighbors and we reach nations. That is our mission as a church. And how do we do that? We take the very things that God has given us and we say, God, let me use these things to glorify you. And he does. Why does it matter what treasure we pursue? Because when we pursue selfish ambition, it robs us of meaningful results. Let's keep reading. Let's pick up in verse 19. Don't store up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves don't break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Jesus continues and he goes away from his example of fasting and he starts to talk about other pursuits in our life. And he says, here's one thing that we shouldn't be pursuing in life. Treasure. Specifically, he says, earthly treasure. Don't pursue earthly treasure. Don't build up earthly treasure in our lives. And so we have one simple question. What is treasure? What is treasure? I find it fascinating that he doesn't give a fuller definition of treasure. He doesn't say, here are the things in your life that you should not accumulate. He simply says, don't accumulate treasure in life. Why the generic concept? I believe one reason is because treasure is very different for each person. We treasure different things in life. This generic term of treasure means something that is highly valued in your life, that is worth protecting. He's talking about these things in life, this stuff in life that we treasure. He says, you can't actually protect it. Like the point of treasure is it's something you want to protect. And as much as you can try, you can't actually protect your treasure. It says if our treasure are objects, so moths can destroy that, and rust can destroy that. And he says, and by the way, if you find a way to kind of protect all your objects well enough, he said, somebody might just come along and steal them. Don't store up treasure It says this stuff is temporary. But what's interesting about the concept that Jesus uses this term treasure is he doesn't say, don't store up stuff. He actually draws a distinction. He doesn't say that it's bad for us to have stuff. Like, how many of you have clothes at home? All right. All right. Most of you. Good. Jesus is not saying, go get rid of all your clothes. Please don't do that. We have possessions here on earth, and Jesus isn't saying it is wrong for us to have possessions here on earth. We all have possessions that we have here on this earth. Is Jesus saying it's wrong for us to have anything? Absolutely not. He draws this distinction. He says, is it your treasure? When does your stuff become your treasure? And it's all about focus. The difference is in how you view it. Anything can be treasure, and anything can be stuff. Anybody watch kids' movies? That's my life. That's my life now. Got 2 little girls, and so I watch kids' movies. I like Madagascar. If you've never seen any of the Madagascar movies, they're quite amusing. There's a scene in Madagascar 2 where all the animals, they're talking animals, okay? I got to bring you into my child zone. There's a scene where all these talking animals, they have a drought and they're looking for water. And so they're digging for water and they're trying to see if they can find water. And here's what happens in the scene.
Any water?
No, just more diamonds and gold.
Okay, don't give up hope.
I love that. I love that. Any water? Nope. Just add this big old pile of diamonds and gold. Well, look at that. I mean, I want you to imagine you're walking down the street today and you see that pile. What are you going to do? You're pulling over your car, getting rid of everything out of your car and just like tossing that in. Why? Because in our mind, that's treasure. When you hear like this, go on a treasure hunt. If you find a treasure chest, what do you expect it to be full of? Diamonds and gold, jewels. Why is that treasure? Have you ever thought about that? Like, here's the thing that little rocks sell for thousands of dollars because they're a little bit more sparkly than other rocks. Have you ever thought how weird that is? What they were looking for was water. Why? Because it has value, purpose. As I look at that, I find the irony that treasure can be absolutely anything, just depending on your circumstance. What do you treasure? There is nothing wrong with having stuff. There's nothing wrong with having little rocks that you value. The question is, are they your treasure? You know, when I read this, I don't read this and take on like the sense of guilt, like I have stuff and worrying about it. You know what it do? It relieves me. All of a sudden, all the stuff, Jesus is saying, that's not supposed to be your treasure. Don't draw your attention and your focus of your life on those things that aren't going to last anyway. It removes pressure in my life. I don't have to be burdened by looking for the next thing that I'm supposed to have because everybody else has it. I don't have to feel anxious about if my cell phone is one generation older than everybody else's cell phone and people are going to go stand in line for 4 billion hours to get the next cell phone that's going to come out that's going to be worthless in 2 years. It all become trash. Jesus simply says this. I love it. He says, by the way, there is an alternative to all this stuff being your treasure. I want you to treasure something. It is just treasure what I'm doing and store up treasure in heaven. How do we store up treasure in heaven? We pursue the things of God. You know the biggest treasure I hope to find when I get to heaven? Other people. The very treasure of God. And I hope that I find other people who their life was impacted by my desire to just serve the Lord in my life. And I hope there are other people that when you get to heaven, you'll be able to look and say, these other people were impacted by my desire in life to serve my Lord and my God that is storing up treasure in heaven. Friends, there is nothing wrong with having stuff. The question is, what do you treasure? Jesus says, treasure what you have in me, and you'll store up treasure that will not be destroyed. There is a treasure I can obtain. So I have no burden for the treasures of this world. Oh, what a relief. Let's read one more time. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. So if the light within you is darkness, how deep is that darkness? No one can serve two masters, since either he will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. The end of this might seem a little bit hard to follow. It starts talking about eyes and light. So let's break down what Jesus is saying. Scientifically, what do eyes do? See. They see by taking light. And they take the light and they allow your brain to decipher what that light is. And so you can recognize what's in front of you. It allows your eyes are how light gets into your body so you can recognize what you're seeing. And so Jesus simply says, if your eyes are working correctly, then it allows light into your life, light into you, that you can see what is in front of you. And if your eyes are not working, it is not allowing the light to come into you, and so you're unaware of what it is that is in front of you. Our eyes examine the light. And in this analogy, he's going to say, okay, if you have a relationship as a follower of Jesus, the concept is that you have healthy eyes, that you see what is in front of you. You see what he is willing to offer you in your life. What is Jesus offering us? What does Jesus want for your life? What is the big takeaway for our lives? I'm going to tell you what it's not. It's not honor and glory among people. We might have some of that, but that is not the big key that Jesus is offering us. It's not the treasure of this world. We might have possessions, but it's not the treasure of this world that he is offering. Jesus says, when our eyes work, here's what we begin to see. We see what God, the most beautiful thing that God offers us is a right relationship with him. And then when we have our right relationship with him, that we are building up treasure, heaven. And Jesus simply says, we can't pursue our relationship with him and pursue the things of the world at the same time. we must choose. How many of you keep a calendar? I have to. I have a calendar on my phone. My phone links to my wife's phone. Anytime we put something on the calendar, we know what's going on. You know why I have to do that? Because I have a billion things going on. And so I do this. You'll see me every once in a while. I'll be in the back talking to somebody after church, and you'll see me run down front and grab my phone and run back to the back. And here's what I'm doing. I'll tell somebody, I say, look, if I'm going to set up a time of doing something, I need to check my calendar. Why do I do that? Because what happens if I don't is I'll book myself to be in two places at the same time. Can I do that? No. See, we're good at the scientific thing. You cannot be in two places at the same time. We understand that. That's why we keep calendars and things like that, to recognize I can't be here and I can't be here. I can't serve this purpose and I can't serve this purpose. No matter how much I want to, both is not an option. We can either follow God or we can follow our own desires. Not both. Now that is not to say that God's desires don't become our desires. But we can either follow ourselves or we can follow God. And Jesus simply says we cannot serve two masters. What is the passion that you are driven by? What makes you move? Far too often we make decisions based on our feelings, not the direction of God. So I simply ask this question: do you see what God is willing to offer you in your life? Because the beauty in it is he actually says you can follow God. It's not this pessimistic idea of you can't serve two masters, so you're doomed for failure. He actually says you can serve this one. Serve the Lord with all your heart, and all your soul, and all your mind, and all your strength. Oh, great is the Lord. What is God offering you in your life? What is God doing in your life? What is the passion, the desire that He is placing upon you? Does it motivate you? Does it get you excited? Do you see that He is willing to build up treasure? In just a moment, we're going to sing one last time. And we're going to worship together. Our desire is that worship wouldn't be something that only happens with us, but as a community of people gathering together, that we would collectively lift high the name of God, that we would encourage one another as we lift high the name of God, that we would use these things that God has placed in our lives to say, God, would you be glorified, so that I might more effectively follow you. I tell you, as you sing, you might say, I need to pray. As we sing, if you want to come up here and just pray up here, and here's what will happen. If you wanted to come up here and pray, there's going to be other people that are going to come up and just going to pray with you. So if you want to come pray here, and I'm going to tell you, if you see somebody come up here and pray, I want to encourage some of our members to just come and pray. If you need somebody to talk to, I'm going to be here. I'll be in the back after the service. We would say, God, do something in my heart, do something in my life, move in me, that I might move for you. Would you stand together and worship?
Where
We thank you. I praise your name. No matter our struggles, no matter what we're going through, we know you have us in the palm of your hand, no matter the situation, no matter the pain. Father, I thank you for this wonderful day that you've given us. I thank you for all that you've allowed to come to hear the message that you've laid on John's heart. As we gather together throughout the week, we pray that you continue to be with us and guide us in all the decisions and all the situations that we make. I thank you for your love, and I pray that as we go, we continue to glorify you. It is in your holy and precious name that we ask. Amen.
I want to, it's a little bit different, but God is good. And just being able to look here and just see people pray together. This is what church is all about. And so I want to encourage you as we get ready to kind of wrap up things. I know like it's easy to kind of jet out here and head on to lunch or whatever you're doing, but take 5 minutes before you go. Just ask the person next to you, ask some people around you how they're doing. But like me, like not just, hey, I'm fine, I'm good, but ask them how they're doing. And see if there's somebody who, like, if as much as can be going on when we close out these services, if somebody needs to continue in prayer, somebody needs to continue a deeper conversation, let's not stop what God is doing simply because our time is finished. Worship is not a time, and worship is not a place. Worship is an attitude of our heart. So in just a moment here, they're going to just allow some music to play throughout. Actually, I'm going to ask y'all just kind of play for a little while as we get finished up. And if you take 5 minutes, think of this as part of our time together. See how the person next to you is doing. Have a meaningful conversation before we go out today. Let's let God be glorified.
Is the